Welcome to the Business of Hotels podcast, examining the issues mattering most to owners and investors. And now, your hosts, Gary and Glenn.
Gary Isenberg, how are you today, sir?
I am just phenomenal. How are you, Glenn?
I am good. I am doing
nice spring day for you.
It is. I got to tell you, it's the middle of the spring. We're here in the city, and it's already a little schwitzy.
Yeah,
you know?
We're getting there. It's been a long winter. I don't think we had a lot of. Did we have a lot of snow? I don't even know where I was this winter. Do you know where you were this winter?
Yes, C-12C on Delta Airlines, not American Airlines like you, which I learned in our last episode was your airline of choice. But I've been thinking a lot, Gary, about all of this thing with technology. You know, I do a hotel tech podcast, but in that show, we talk all about the nitty gritty on, how you use technology to mine guests and find guests and all of that kind of stuff. But we haven't really been talking about it from an ownership perspective. And I'm thinking here on the Business of Hotels podcast, I think it's a really good topic for us to talk about how big data and machine learning and all of these technologies that we didn't know were going to exist 5 years ago are changing the face of the way owners and operators work in the hospitality industry.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic, Glenn, and I'm excited to speak of it. But one of the things I wanted to talk about in this is really understanding, our industry is, as we know, and you probably have talked about this on your tech podcast, always seems to trail behind in.
No, we haven't talked about that on the tech podcast, which you should listen to every other week on the No Vacancy Network. But Gary, that really is focused on how you can maximize opportunity on Expedia or how it's real nitty gritty wonky stuff.
So as we look at our industry, we've always kind of trailed behind in technology.
Right.
I mean, if you look, and we're always behind. But what's interesting is the reason I use the word big data in this podcast this week is, although the big data that's up in the clouds with Amazon and Google and all this, what's interesting is the hotels themselves have big data. We have a tremendous amount of data that we don't harness and don't.
No, and we've been collecting it for decades. I remember in the 1990s traveling, and people would ask me my preferences, and it would be entered into a computer, never to be seen again.
Correct. And what's interesting also with all the technology we have, if we could only harness it. I'll give you an example. A very small, minor process that's done in a hotel, and think about how this could be enhanced with technology, and that's room assignment. Mm-hmm. You go into a hotel right now, and I'm sure you've experienced this, and you go to check in and they go, let me find you a room, right? and they're looking at lists and they're saying, oh, I'm going to put you in this room, it's near the elevator, it's far from the elevator, it's on a high floor, whatever. But they're not utilizing the technology that I'm sure that's in the system to auto-assign the room.
It's frustrating. I was at a luxury hotel in Miami Beach a couple of weeks ago or last month or whatever it was, and I said, all I want is a room with a nice balcony. I don't care about anything else. It literally took 8 to 10 minutes of this woman looking and typing on the machine and doing this and that. I'm thinking about all of my time wasted and all the company money that is wasted.
So first of all, she doesn't. The problem is that she's a human, right? And she doesn't know necessarily what each balcony looks like.
No, why would she?
Right? She wouldn't, right? So all that could be automated. Now, typically, the way these auto assignments work in most of these systems is there's some criteria. Maybe we're gonna schedule top floor down or best view versus non-best view. But it's not necessarily an algorithm that's taking your likes and interests and finding you the best room.
Right. But it should, because they're already asking me on certain frequent programs that if I like a high floor near the elevator.
I even want to take it a step further, okay? And here's where the rub I have is. We have all this data, and this data needs to talk to each other and needs to be housed in one area where we can access it and run algorithms.
Right.
For example, 65% of most branded hotel companies' guests are loyal customers, okay? In most brands, anywhere between 50 and 65. So most of your customers are loyal customers. We know where they've stayed before. We know what room types they stayed in before.
Right.
We know if they've had customer issues, if they had complaints, if they complained about a room, if they scored the surveys they got, what they scored the room content and this and that, and all these different things. We have all this data. In addition, we have all the data on our own rooms, not just guests. We have all the data of every room that a customer, what complaints complained about this room. We have data to know when the air filters were changed in the room. We have data to know when the carpets were shampooed in the room. We have all this data. There's no reason when a guest checks in that's a Hilton Diamond member that he is not put in the absolute best room that we have based on all these data points and based on his concerns. If he's a customer that always comes in and complains about noise, don't put him next to an elevator.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
it's that simple.
It is just that simple. Yet the hotel industry, going back to your point about always being behind on technology, hasn't seemed to be able to connect the dots with using machine learning in a logical way to crunch all of that big data to create differences that are meaningful to the customers in just the way that you're talking about.
And I think the key here is and I'm no IT expert, okay, by no means. But it doesn't sound to me that this is a huge investment in technology. It's more of an investment in data storage and figuring out how to get the data.
Well, right. I mean, the data storage, you just partner with Amazon Web Services, which a lot of the major hotel companies seem to be doing already. And I think it should be something that should be actionable, because if the hotels companies don't get their act together on this, then Google is going to wind up
doing it.
Absolutely everything, because they already know more about me than I know about me.
Very true.
It's frightening. It's really frightening.
It is. And we have all this data, and we can access it. And I think, the other side of it, now going back to that room assignment again, I want to talk more about this. This is, again, one simple process in a hotel. And we just identified that we can completely impact the stay and the customer survey of that one customer that just checked in by giving them the right room selection, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. The second thing is we can control our payroll. And the way we can control payroll, you're interested in, like you're saying, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're so good with this payroll stuff. You're very clear at finding small ways that add up to big savings.
So here's where the payroll rub is. Assume right now that you have a room attendant. It takes 30 minutes to clean a room. So you're assigning her 30 minutes. She gets paid 7 hours a day. So she's cleaning 14 rooms.
Right.
Okay. There's 14 rooms per floor. We'll assume right now she's the only room attendant assigned. 13 rooms are sold on that floor. Okay. The check-in clerk puts her on the second floor, not the first floor. First floor is the floor that has a 13. Sounds simple. Now all she's got to do is go to the second floor. She can clean 14, and she can clean that room. Not. Most agreements, most of our labor agreements, not to mention just common practice, is if they travel from floor to floor, they lose a room credit. So they only have to clean 13 if they travel.
Right.
So now that she has 13 on this floor, she can't clean the 14th. So
she might as well have gone to the other floor.
So therefore, she doesn't have to go anywhere. She's only going to have to clean 13 in her shift. In order for you to get her to clean the next room, you can do one of two things. One, you can bring in another employee to clean that room, okay? Which in most cases you're going to probably pay a minimum of 4 hours. Two, number two, what you're going to do is you're going to pay them an extra room, meaning that I can't have you clean this in your shift because you have travel time. I got to reduce the quota, but I can pay you $20 to clean that room within your 8-hour shift. So now you're giving them an extra $20. Where meanwhile, if you just would have assigned that room to the first floor and made it 14, you wouldn't be paying an extra $20.
Sounds like you should just give your hotel guests $5 a shot not to have the room cleaned.
But my I guess where I'm going with this though is
totally.
There is no reconciliation back to our labor standards and so forth to know where we should put this customer. And I think there's ways to, again, through knowing the data, this could all be done.
All right, so we're not just talking about the whole notion of servicing the guests in a way that's going to make them more loyal, hopefully in the long run, and get them to spend more money, but we're also talking about how to utilize big data to, through machine learning, be able to lower the overall expenses, to create a path for each person's day that's most efficient and effective.
Correct. Absolutely. With the rules that you have in place. Absolutely.
Right. Huh. That's really fascinating to me. I want to talk more about this as soon as we get back from a quick pause in the conversation because, Gary, I want to know where else can this go to? How can we use big data to make more money and spend less money at the properties? So stick around. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, this is Gary Isenberg with LWHA Hospitality Advisors, president of their asset management division, where we bridge the gap between hotel ownership and management. View us at our website at www.lwhospitalityadvisors.com. You can always email me at gary.isenberg@lwhadvisors.com. Feel free to call me as well at 212-300-6684, extension 108. Look forward to speaking to you or receiving your emails.
Gary, this is so interesting to me, and I find it fascinating that hoteliers typically shy away from technology until it's been more established, which might make a lot of sense, but I think right now we're talking about missing out on opportunity if you're not leveraging technology to its maximum capabilities. That's why I like a lot of this workflow software that I'm seeing out there that's taking some of these big data ideas and creating those paths to efficiencies for companies.
And I'm glad you bring it up because you were saying where else could we see examples of this and so forth. And I think a great department is engineering within a hotel.
Right.
One of my biggest pet peeves when I was a general manager of a hotel is what I call the light bulb chase.
I know where this is going. This is great.
And the light bulb chase is all of a sudden you see a light bulb out, call engineering, they come, they change a light bulb. 2 days later, 3 light bulbs down from that light bulb, it's out. There's a reason why that's happening. And the reason is because probably when that room was renovated or that corridor was renovated, all the light bulbs were put in the same time. All those light bulbs had a useful life expectancy of 50,000 hours, 30,000 hours, whatever. And it doesn't mean exactly on the 30,000th hour it's going to die, but it's going to start dying around them. You ever go to an airport? You've been to many airports. I know you probably live in an airplane, right? And you've probably been on a few runways in your time.
Yep.
Have you ever seen a light bulb out?
Nope.
You know why?
I'm going to guess that they think it's going to be out. Let's just change them all at once.
They change them all at one time. They know exactly when that time is coming up, and it's more efficient from a time perspective to change them all at once than to send someone out every other day to change a bulb.
I mean, how much is a light bulb? Let's just say $1, right?
Today it's a little bit more with the...
All right. Well,
but anyway,
let's go crazy. $2 a light bulb, right? So if I change those 10 light bulbs at one time, that's $20. So I see that one bulb that's out. I'm spending the money for my engineer to go down, find the light bulb, come up, let guests take the elevator 4 times before he gets on it, right? Come up, change that light bulb, and then go do his next thing. Now we've already spent a lot of money when we could have just had him go boom, 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 and save 10 different trips, right?
So going to now your idea of efficiency and use of big data and all this type of stuff of how do we make this more efficient? And where I could see this going is we have an automated engineering cart system where, it basically gets stocked by a work order ticket. So we know that, hey, all the light bulbs on the 5th floor are going to die in the next week, okay? So there's 30 light bulbs. The cart is stacked robotically with 30 light bulbs for the 5th floor. We also know that the filters haven't been changed in the air conditioning for 30 days or so, and it needs to be changed. Here's the filters to do that. Whatever other things on that floor, because that's where you're going to be. And now today, you're working on that floor, taking care of all those issues.
Right, and theoretically, it should tell you all the tools that you will need for that.
Correct.
Because I see that all the time in hotels. The guy goes upstairs, and then he's got to go down and find that tool.
And the beauty about this, if you think about with robotic and automation, is as long as you put the tool back on the cart and where it's supposed to be, it's going to go back on the shelf on where it's supposed to be. So then tomorrow, when you need that screwdriver again, the cart is going to load that screwdriver back onto your cart.
Ooh.
right? Or whatever you need.
Right.
So there's no losing tools, no running around finding. So I could see all those processes being kind of automated, if
Right.
you would, both for use of data and technology.
I encourage everyone out there listening to check out my bonus episode with Purple Cloud Technologies, where we talk all about this workflow optimization software and why it is so meaningful, and how maybe adding gamification could actually help your employees be more efficient with work and do an even better job with customer service. But I think when we're talking overall about big data, I think it's important to be clear that big data can be used in all areas of the hotel, right? In terms of capturing the imagination of the guests during the buy cycle, to winning their love during the cycle, to getting them back, to operating the hotel, to every facet of our business.
But it's the key though is harnessing the data and allowing your employees to have very easily accessibility and taught what to do with the data. So for example, we know if you stay in a hotel, we know every penny that you spend in that hotel and where you spent it. We know that you went to room service. We know what you had in room service.
Right.
We know if you watched a movie. We probably know what movie it was, which for you, I'm a little concerned.
I know. I like to watch
Disney. It's all Disney.
I was going to say Smurfs joke, but yeah, I forgot the name for a second.
So movies.
That's what they invented the internet for. So you don't have to.
Do that anymore.
You don't have to claim you didn't watch the movie.
So, and dry cleaning or laundry services or whatever services you may have used, and that stuff can be harnessed to the employee, so they know to ask, certain things. Or maybe even you get a text message, because remember, we're going to keyless, and you're going to have everything your phone's going to identify, because you're going to have an RFID reader. You're going to go up, and it's going to be how you get in your room. So as soon as you check in, it could be like, hey, we know you've ordered room service your first night at every Westin that you've stayed in the last 30 years.
Right.
And this is your first night and you're in a Westin. So we're going to email you the specials for room service and ask you to order right now. That's the way we can customize the data. And the employee's not even doing it. It's the system doing it.
Right, and I've been saying this sort of stuff for years, that it should really know what my personal profile is, and it's a great upsell opportunity.
But it's besides personal profiles what I'm getting to. It's great for you to sit there and say, I like chocolate milk.
I mean that if I've ordered sushi downstairs in your restaurant for the last 10 times I'm here, and I've also rented a movie in my room,
right,
then why not offer me like a deal of movie and a sushi plate for whatever $1 off or something?
But I'm not
like
even saying that I have to offer you anything. I'm telling you right now, I know every night every time you're ordering room service, your first night here, if I just, upon you checking into your room and walking into your room, basically send you a text message and saying, here's my specials, push this button to order dinner, it'll be up in 15 minutes. Right. You don't need a discount. You're just making it easy for them.
And that's really what it's all about, is removing friction from whatever the process is in order to get people to spend more freely.
And we also have to be a little fearful of the Big Brother effect, right?
Do we? I mean, aren't we already there? We're ignoring it so well already?
I guess. It is a little frightening. And I think sometimes I'm not sure to believe it or not believe it. Like I had a situation with myself. I was down at my daughter's apartment in Philadelphia, and we were deciding on where to go for brunch. Okay, and we're sitting there, and within 5 minutes of that conversation, I get, how you get those instant messages on your phone from the apps you have loaded on your phone? It was Yelp, and it said best places to have brunch in Philadelphia.
Oh,
I was talking about it. Yeah, very bizarre.
Yeah, there's a lot of scary stuff that's going
with
on.
cell
I
phones.
mean, these phones, they're listening to us all the time, and I don't think people really realize what's going on. So how can the hotel industry, what other ideas do you have to use all this stuff for good instead of the potential for evil?
Yeah, again, I think, all maximizing, again, looking at all the data that we're currently collecting on customers, currently collecting in our P&L, accounts payable, how can we measure what shampoo is costing us and competitively pricing? Right. Why isn't this data being cross-collateralized from all the hotel P&Ls to see who's running what? I mean, it's just we can go on forever because there's just so much data.
I mean, if you think about ways you could use the data to save money, I'm just thinking of the system should theoretically be able to say to you, hey, there's 500 hotels in our system. You're using the most soap.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So then that will alert you to, oh, I didn't know. Here's something that I might be able to focus on.
Correct.
Huh.
I mean, here's you're running at a $5. Now, some of the brand it gets a little difficult when you have other management companies and but the brand
information,
right? Who owns the information? That's where it becomes challenging on the P&L side. But there are companies out there like HotStats who are now working with all the major brands and collecting all that detailed data P&L, where you can actually run like a hotel star report, if you would, like with a comp set on a P&L. And it's real-time data and so forth. So that's kind of interesting. But I think we're going to continue to see use of more data being harnessed and utilized. You look at like Calibri Labs, another one that does a lot of synthesizing data that they collect from all the brands. But I think the brands themselves got to start figuring out how to do this themselves and not continually lose the data.
Well, they absolutely have to, because number one, they're losing out on opportunity to make more money, perhaps, and secondly, they're just ceding the market to somebody else, which is never a good thing, considering that more hoteliers are feeling emboldened to do independent properties because we're so into this great upcycle that I think you need to have more arrows in your quiver to be able to show to owners that we could do this for you, right?
Correct. And, and I think going to the technology side, moving away from the data side, we need to really engage and figure out how to utilize robotics to save on labor, as we talked about before.
Yeah,
cleaning rooms
we definitely have talked about it before, and how it has to be done in the right way to improve customer service, not take away from those incredible touch points that we
And that's the same thing going on back to the data for a moment, just step back too. We don't want to create paralysis by analysis. Nice song.
I know, it's that's Axilla by Fish, if anyone wants to catch that. That was my phone. Sorry about that. It's Vegas calling. It might be about a hot interview I'm trying to put together. When I'm down there.
I thought maybe you won.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
So where was I?
I don't remember. I'm thinking about my next Fish show in July now.
But going
analysis
back to robotics
paralysis.
and then paralysis by analysis. And I think what we've got to be careful is that we're not just utilizing data and creating ways to just track data for the sense of tracking data.
Right.
It's got to be useful. But we have so much, from the way we staff to the way people are spending money to the way we're servicing the customer to what we're spending our money on accounts payables and invoices. I just think that it can be manipulated so much more for us to track and figure out how to best enhance customer, especially customer service. I mean, there's no reason why we can't make every guest that's checking in be 100% score on our scores when we have all the data. We know what he complains about. We know what he dislikes. We know what he likes or she likes. We know everything about our guest rooms. We know that this guest room maybe has had lots of leaks in it, or this guest room has had 100 complaints out of 102 customers. Whatever it might be, we have all that data, and we can synthesize all that and sit there and say, here's our best rooms, here's our worst rooms. Now, what does it also do for you? It also now identifies how do I get rid of my bottom 10%, right? As you just said a minute ago. So now I know that the top 6 floors of my hotel are my best rooms, and the bottom floor are my worst. Well, when I go to renovate now, I'm going to spend the money on those floors and not the 6 because I know they're good, which I didn't have that data before, and I was just going based on age or my own visual condition, but not data-driven decisions.
Right. So how do we have the right amount of data that is actionable, that people don't get bogged down in just having too much data?
I think right now we just harness the data we already collect. There's so much data within our hotels. We don't have to track or create more data, just taking what we have. So for example, we have right now engineers that go into every room and do condition reports and do work order tickets. Track those work order tickets. You have systems probably that do, but really understand if someone's going into the room and cleaning and unstuffing the sink 4 times a week because it's backed up, something else needs to be done.
Right.
And you have that data to see that. That's where I'm getting at.
Right. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. I just wish we could use technology to figure out how to get the clock in my room to say the correct time occasionally.
It's so, my favorite story on those clocks is when I think it was IHG went to this Sony Dream machine or something like that. I still have one at home, and I still don't know how to program the damn thing. every time I go to turn it on, it starts doing this wave thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, but let's get that figured out with getting the time on all of these things. And but the whole thing with machine learning and stuff to me is I keep coming back to the same question about how do we take all of this information and have it spit out an instruction for that young GM to really just follow the instructions by the computer to minimize the fact that they may not have that experience to make those decisions or have that insight ahead of time.
Yeah, I think I think it goes a step further where you're communicating, the technology is communicating directly with the consumer. Such as like, hey, I'm sending the system's doing it based on his past preferences. You've been in, you've always ordered room service on your first night. So here's the room service specials. Here's the other menus. Here's what we're suggesting. You had this, and that last time. We suggest you have this, and all you got to do is push a button, and it gets ordered, and it goes. So there's no employee interfacing until the food is brought.
Yeah, and honestly, at that point, I'm cool with a robot delivering my food because if I finally got to the room and I'm exhausted and I ordered room service, I don't want to talk to somebody.
But I think to me, I don't agree with that. I think you want that customer in that interaction.
Yes, I'm looking at it from the guest point of view.
And I am too. And because what I'm all getting at here is what we want is what we're comfortable with. You order Uber Foods or Uber Eats or whatever you do at home to have delivered. Is it a robot coming up and delivering your food? No, it's some guy coming out of the car giving you food.
Right. To be fair, I go and pick my food up. I feel weird about the whole delivery thing.
But there you go. So there's another option.
Yeah. Well, for me, I like interacting with hotel staff on my terms. I don't like somebody coming into my room.
Right. So therefore, one of the things could also be that do you want to pick it up or do you want to deliver? Because most hotels are moving away from that whole concept of, unless you're going like a Four Seasons, a white glove treatment and a room service table with the big silver platter, all that's going away.
Right, because I don't need anyone coming in to know I've been watching the Smurfs. Right.
Now they're now they're walking. I was just at where was I? I was at a Marriott, and they just come up with a brown paper bag.
Yeah,
with all everything in it, all the condiments.
Nice. Excellent. Any final thoughts on technology? Where's all this going? 10 years from now, make that prediction. Will the hotel industry have figured it out? Or will we just be behind on a whole other set of issues?
We'll still have DOS terminals at the front office.
I think you're right. I don't understand why anyone has DOS terminals at the front desk right now.
No, I think we're on the right move, and I think it's happening. I do think that the brands are starting to realize that the one thing that they control, where all either OTAs or the home sharing economy and so forth can't control, and that is the customer experience while they're inside our four walls. I think they also have a great ability to control that experience even outside the four walls with technology. You can think down the road of having, interfaces and agreements with Uber to understand exactly when the customer's pulling in your driveway when they take an Uber, where they're going for dinner, and kind of keeping track of the customers so we know when they're going to be back at the hotel, and all. There's lots of, if you think about it, all these different kind of side angles that we can kind of help enhance that experience.
It'll be interesting to see as a society how much we want to give, freely of what we are. I know I've already said we've already given it away, and in a large extent we have, but I wonder how much that give and take is going to work between the customer and the hotel to create hopefully a seamless experience for all parties.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big question, right? But I think we're moving in that direction, and I think what I like. I think there's an advantage to some degree for the hotel industry that we are such a slow mover in technology.
Well, you get to see which is established and what's fly by night.
Correct. And so I think, and I think the data side of it is an easier fix because it's all there. We just got to figure out how to harness it and start accessing it, how to get it into one kind of language to speak of. and then run algorithms on it. I mean, that's what all the websites and stuff do. Is they collect it a lot easier because they're all collecting it at the same source.
Right.
But we have it, and we just got to figure out how to use it.
Great. Any final thoughts, or you just want to tell us how to find you?
Find me at Gary.Isenberg at LWHospitalityAdvisors.com. Actually, no, it's Gary.Isenberg at LWH.
One of these days, you'll know how to find yourself.
At LWHadvisors.com. But our website is www.lwhospitalityadvisors.com.
All right, not confusing at all.
Oh, none at all.
And I'm at Traveling Glenn, wherever you find your social media, and join our newsletter. Get the word on whenever a brand new episode of the Business Hotels come out, as well as all the other series, the No Vacancy family of shows. See, just like the brands, I'm creating a family of shows as well. Just text the word hotel to 66866. That's the word hotel to 66866.
But we're the best family of those family of hotels.
We are definitely the best.
This is the Waldorf Astoria of those families.
This is definitely my luxury product right here.
Very good.
All right,
thanks.
All right, I'm gonna take off my white gloves. Thank you guys for listening, and then we'll be back next time, telling you all about how the NYU Hospitality Conference
That's coming up
went.
already.
That's coming
You
up.
got to be kidding
already.
me.
Nope, dude. Seriously, it's time to start planning for the fall holidays at this point.
Wow. Slow it down, man. I'm getting off this ride.
I know. I'll tell you one thing, though. At this time of year, because we're right smack dab in the middle of spring here, what is it, like early May kind of a thing, this is the only time of year I'm not panicked that summer is almost over. So
I hear you.
I am very excited. I want to thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next time with a great show on NYU. Thanks for listening to the Business Hotels Podcast.
Take care.